I know that you're a good fantasy manager. You know that you're a good fantasy manager. So let's make sure we start the right defense because this is the most important week to get that correct in fantasy football. You can start a defense that gives you 20. You can start one that gives you -5 and lose your chances at the playoffs. In this video, I'll go over every tier of defenses from S all the way down to F tier with the top options we can go through and pick up off the waiver wire as well. Starting in the S tier with none other than the Denver Broncos. Now, they are clear and away number one if they're out there for you. The Las Vegas Raiders is their matchup the most positive. Geno Smith is throwing some of the most interceptions in the league. Their offensive line is not graded too well. If you want to know the offensive line rankings for running backs as well, I posted a full game-by-game recap for that. You can check it out in the description. But just know that this Broncos defensive line, Nick Bonito, and literally everybody is coming for Geno Smith, and they are going to sack him maybe 8 times. Love that. The floor for them is 7.5 points because I really, really do believe in them. Their ceiling is all the way up at 14. Yes. That is possible. They are one of the best defenses you can see with the stats here. At number 2 in the S tier, we do have the Cleveland Browns. This is one of the best defensive lines in the league. I think they're actually rated number 1. Thank you, Myles Garrett. They get a matchup against the Tennessee Titans. We know their offensive line is not that great, and a lot of sacks are generated. Cam Ward is one of the most sacked quarterbacks in the NFL. Whether that's his weapons or the offensive line's fault, both of them is really good for this Browns defensive line that's going to take advantage of this matchup. Also, the lowest projected scoring game of the week at 33.5 points. For those of you that don't know, the average is around 42 or 43 points. There's at 33. For example, the Lions and the Cowboys was at 55.5. It's going to be low scoring. So that's number 1, good for defenses. Number 2 is good for defenses is the turnovers, getting sacks, forcing fumbles, interceptions, all of that. That gives you more fantasy points than just keeping a low scoring game. So all of those things combined give this team a floor of 7.5 and also a ceiling up at 13. Next up in the S tier, a lot of good defenses this week. Seattle Seahawks. Getting one against the Atlanta Falcons, they have been considerably worse with Kirk Cousins in at quarterback. Likely won't have Drake London good to go for this game either, so with him out, it's going to be even better. And the Seattle Seahawks is one of the best internal units. As far as an entire team, they are playing insane on the defensive side of the ball. So if you are stopping Darnell Mooney and Bijan Robinson, like, you're perfectly fine. You don't really have to stop Kyle Pitts. It's Kyle Pitts. But anyways, their defensive scheme is very good. They sack the quarterback a lot. They really do pressure the quarterback, and they get pressure on quarterbacks without having to blitz 2 and only sending 4, which is really, really good because you can drop back more defensive backs and play the pass, which they're going to have to do because the Falcons are projected to lose this game by over a touchdown. So I have their floor up at 12.3 fantasy points and a ceiling down at 7.2, which is still very solid, very amazing. You can start them. And the Los Angeles Rams, who also makes it in this video. Defense number 4, they get theirs against the Arizona Cardinals. Now, Jacoby Brissett has actually been pretty decent in NFL terms, a little bit worse than fantasy terms, but he is passing some of the most in the NFL, which gives us more opportunities for those interceptions. And we know the Los Angeles Rams defense is very, very good. They can stop the pass. They can stop the run a little bit as well, but they are in a really good situation here where they're projected to win this game by over a touchdown. They're going to get right after that loss to the Carolina Panthers, and the Arizona Cardinals are going to be in a pass-first catch-up game script, so it's going to be really good for them without Marvin Harrison likely, and also Trey Benson. So I have their ceiling up at 12.3 points again, but their floor a little bit lower at 6.8 because the Arizona Cardinals defense is a little bit more positive in scoring compared to the Falcons, the Titans, and the Raiders from what we've seen so far in this video. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers is also a good one, and I will say they are a really good defense for the rest of the fantasy football playoffs. So if somebody drops them or you can pick them up, they got great matchups from week 15 through 17. This week they get the New Orleans Saints, which is also a positive one. The Saints really haven't been as bad from allowing fantasy points to a defense perspective as people expect, but they're still pretty bad. 6.8 floor for them, a ceiling over at 10.7. The Buccaneers are more of a pass funnel defense, which means they can stop the run. Their defensive line isn't bad. So when you look at the Saints, Tyler Shough at quarterback, Chris Olave, they don't have the highest completion percentage or accurate pass percentage. Catchable target rate for the wide receivers aren't good. So when you look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here, very good one for them. They are home in this matchup. Positive 6.8 point fantasy floor and 11.7 at their ceiling for me. A little bit lower than some of these other defenses I'm going to get into, but they have a safer floor. Next up, we have the Philadelphia Eagles. This one is probably the most boom or bust because the Eagles defense is pretty good in themselves. But if we don't have Justin Herbert in this matchup, it makes them an absolute amazing play. Justin Herbert is dealing with his hand injury. He got surgery on that. He has not taken one snap under center. He's been playing in 7-on-7s, 11-on-11s in practice, but isn't under center and not really taking hits. So there's a chance he doesn't play. They do play on Monday night, so maybe he will come back. I think he will. They are really needing a playoff spot right now. Even if he does come back, the Philadelphia Eagles defense has been pretty solid, and the Chargers offensive line is completely banged up. No Joe Alt for the rest of the season. They're allowing some of the most pressures on non-blitzes so far this year ever since all those guys have gotten injured. So this should be a place, even if the Eagles are missing some of their guys as well, they should be able to control pace and do their thing on defense. I have their ceiling up at 12 points, but their floor down at 6.5 just because there is a chance that the Chargers offense does Chargers offense things. We also do have the Miami Dolphins at the defense number 7 here. This sneak peek is one of the top waiver wire ad defenses of the week because they're still available in so many leagues because of the Dolphins defense. Nobody wants to take a risk on the Dolphins defense, but we will this week because this is an amazing spot. They get a matchup against the Jets. Tyrod Taylor is a better quarterback than Justin Fields NFL-wise for this defensive matchup, which is true. But the Dolphins defense have been really, really good defending the pass. They're one of the best in restricting fantasy points and EPA per play to the wide receivers. A lot of that comes from their run defense being so bad and them getting blown out to where you don't have to pass on them a ton, but they're still pretty decent in that. Their corners are good at stopping wide receivers. I did, again, post a full game-by-game breakdown where I go over every single wide receiver's matchup grade and what corner they're matched up against, which is really good insight if you want to make those start-sit decisions accurately. I will pin that in the description as well. But the Miami Dolphins defense here just get to take advantage of this matchup, one of the lower projected scoring games of the week. So I have their ceiling at 11.6 and their floor down at 6.3, just because you never know with these two teams. The Tennessee Titans are also a decent option you can go through and get. I will spoiler alert this one, the biggest boom bust defense of the week. The Titans defense hasn't necessarily been terrible. The problem is that they are never in games and they're playing great offenses, so they don't really have a chance. This week, though, they do get the Cleveland Browns, and Shedeur Sanders starting at quarterback. He will throw an interception. He will probably get sacked a million times. He is better now than he was in like the first week and in college as well as evading the sacks. But the Tennessee Titans defense should be able to do a little bit of something. Their defensive line isn't necessarily terrible. I think they can generate some sacks and take advantage of Shedeur Sanders not being a great quarterback. So their ceiling is up at 11.4 and their floor is down at 6.6. We can also, still inside the top 10 startable defenses, the Green Bay Packers. They get theirs against the Chicago Bears. We don't have Rome Odunze in this matchup. It does make Luther Burden a must-add, guys. If you do not have him, if he's on your waiver wires, stash him, add him while you still can. Not that he's going to go insane this week, but if he does, it'll be impossible to get him off the waivers. But the Packers defense, one of the best lines in the NFL. You have Micah Parsons, of course, leading the way. He gets some of the most pressure on quarterbacks, even if he doesn't generate that into a ton of sacks. It helps the defensive line a ton. So the Bears' offensive line isn't necessarily amazing, but it's more of Caleb Williams just not being an elite quarterback. The Packers should be able to do something in this matchup. Again, a pretty high boomer bust rate. This is where the reality of the defenses that we're getting into for this tier. 11.7 fantasy point ceiling, but their floor down at 6.4. Next up, dropping it down, we do have the Washington Commanders at the defense number 10. Now, this one is a little bit of a hot take. Very, very risky play, but the Minnesota Vikings here are starting J.J. McCarthy. We know that J.J. McCarthy is going to be a little bit better than Brosmer, but not an insane upgrade. We do have to worry about Justin Jefferson because he can torch Jonathan Jones. He can torch Mikey Sanders still. Trust me, I'm a Commanders fan. Sanders still is allowing the number one most fantasy points per route run to opposing wide receivers. But we're banking on the problems with J.J. McCarthy, on the interceptions, on the sacks. So I do have their ceiling up at 10.5, but their floor down at 5.6. So just be aware of that. They are a risky option. You can also go through and get the Kansas City Chiefs here against the Houston Texans. This one is a defensive-centric matchup. This one is going to be a safer defense if you want safety. This has one of the lowest projected game totals of the week at 40.5. The Chiefs defense is very, very good. The Houston Texans defense is very, very good as well. So you're going to be hoping for those turnovers, for those mistakes, and sacks more importantly. I have their ceiling up at 10.8, but their floor down at 5.7. I also have the Houston Texans back-to-back right here with them because they do get the Kansas City Chiefs, which is a good offense, but they kind of play down to the competition and they don't necessarily win games convincingly and not turn the ball over or generate sacks. So they are a good option, but I also do like the Baltimore Ravens, which I might move over them. We probably will have Lamar Jackson healthy in this matchup, but the Ravens defense themselves have been playing better as of late, and it's a lot more solid of a matchup against the Pittsburgh Steelers. The only issue is that it's a divisional matchup, and they do tend to be closer and a bit more unpredictable, but this defense has been turning it up. I also do like the Minnesota Vikings against the Washington Commanders. This defense is decent. They just don't get the opportunity because their offense sucks so bad. Their defense is on the field every single time, so much every single game, which hurts defenses in fantasy football because you're always getting tested. Now, it's not like the Commanders are great, but they do have Jaden Daniels coming back in this matchup. Terry McLaurin is healthy. Debo is healthy. It's a little bit more worrisome of a matchup for them. So they do still have potential at a 10.7 fantasy ceiling, but a floor down at 5.5. You can also go through and start the Indianapolis Colts defense. This is one that I think is a bit of a sleeper at the position of defense 15. The Jacksonville Jaguars are not a bad offense. Their offensive line isn't great. They do throw some interceptions and don't make the best decisions, but this should be a close game. I have their ceiling up at 10.9 and their floor at 5.5. You can also go get the Steelers against the Ravens if you need it, and the Jaguars against the Indianapolis Colts. But the top waiver wire defenses for this week, number one, we alluded to earlier in the video, is going to be the Miami Dolphins. The fact that they are a top 7 defense this week and are rostered in about 30% of leagues, absolutely insane. I would pick them up. Again, it is a little bit risky against the Jets, but comparatively to all the other options that we do have, it is solid for us. I also do like the Tennessee Titans off the waiver wire because of the Cleveland Browns matchup. They are the defense 8 on the week for me. Should be positive. A lot of sacks being generated there. Again, the Washington Commanders, which is a borderline top 10 defense this week against the Minnesota Vikings and JJ McCarthy. They can be picked up off the waiver wire, only rostered in about 15% of leagues. Those are the top 3 waiver defenses that actually rank really good this week you need to pick up. I appreciate you guys hanging out in this video. Good luck in this week. I hope you guys make it to playoffs with me, and I will see you in the next video. I'm excited for that coming next week. All glory to the man above.